What's up, guys? Evan Aldo here, walking in the damn rain right now. Gloomy few days in Connecticut. Feels cold. Well, high 60s, but you know what I mean. Like a little freaking chilly for this time of year, I'll tell you that much. But look, I mean, interesting times. A little bit of, we always hope, things end well in the Middle East. And it seems like, hopefully the master negotiator, the art of the deal man, the lion, will hopefully figure it out. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. And, when you look at Bitcoin and ETH right now, higher lows are trying to be made. I mean, for all I know, they could have just wiped out those lows while I'm recording this. But when I looked like 10 or 20 minutes ago, higher lows are trying to be made. I think there's some potential. When you look at Market Cipher, there are some blood diamonds showing up, like, 22 hour, I think, like on Bitcoin, maybe ETH too. There's that potential. A lot of times they don't confirm, though. When you see these kind of like fearful little drops down, you're still in range. I think if you didn't have the Iran-Israel thing, I think you probably would have broke upward by now. But who knows? Especially summer, trading volume can get a little bit lower a lot of times. So, keep that in mind. In addition to, all that, you're probably gonna get your summer lull. I still think, July, August. If you do break upward, I think as you get closer to the end of June, the odds of ETH jumping to, 4K by the 4th of July get lower and lower. But that was never the most probable scenario. It was normally 3,000 to 3,200 that I've been talking about for a while now. And, sometimes you just gotta wait. You kind of gotta wait these things out a little bit. So it moves around. When you look at a lot of the altcoins, a lot of things right now, we'll see what Powell says tomorrow. I did a poll, are they going to end QT tomorrow? Probably not. I don't think. I'd be pleasantly surprised if they do, and I think that would probably help out the alts. Kind of seems like, if I had to guess, you won't officially end QT until probably September, maybe. I would say with that rate cut, that's what it's looking like right now, unless things change. If you do have a significant summer lull for S&P 500, NASDAQ, you would see probably, I don't know if it's July. I know there's only one meeting in July and August. I don't know when it is, but that first meeting, maybe you could see a rate cut a little bit earlier, but it's looking like September at the moment, unless things get we're talking a significant drop for the S&P 500, in my opinion, because you're almost at all-time highs and all that. But I would ultimately think you would keep coming up. And, S&P 500, your average year, 10 to 15% or something. Probably 15% on the year for the NASDAQ you'll close out. Unless things, are different than, what I've been mapping out and all that. But that's what I'm looking at. And it still equates to probably, a Bitcoin at around 150K. A wide range would be 130K to 180K by the end of the year. If your S&P 500 keeps going, it's unlikely Bitcoin will not make new all-time highs into the end of the year. Let's be real on that. Funding fees are pretty good. Not many people are longing. That's been the case for a while now, at least a few weeks, maybe even a month. Social interest still pretty damn low. People aren't tuning in too much. You got me, doing degenerate now. You got me doing some scalp longs. I'm good at scalping, or, more of those tighter stop losses, bigger positions, with still risking the same amount of money I normally risk when I am trading. So you do have that. Ultimately, I think we're still in a decent position. I think things aren't going to get that bad. I think we've kind of seen, the worst of the correction in the earlier parts of this year. Bitcoin's still kind of in your 4-year cycle. It's still generally a bit in your 4-year cycle here. So when you look at that, alts are a different story. That kind of has broken the 4-year cycle where things normally bottom out against Bitcoin. I would say except for ETH. You did bottom out late against ETH, but you're still in a potential. And then we could talk about, the theory of elongated cycle. Your 4-year cycle is kind of over, and we're still going to keep, going upward into 2026 and into, let's say, I don't know, until 2027, 2028, if you follow the 18-year real estate cycle that, if you guys have watched when I had CVO on, we talked about that a few times. I think there's potential, but I also think you could see a year more similar to 2014 where your S&P 500 does decent, but Bitcoin does have its typical correction. I don't know, though. You know, at this point, it's kind of hard to exactly say, but, you know, when you have an asset that came up from, you know, it went from 15K to potentially 150K this year, you know, you would think it's pretty logical to think you would have a 50% correction, at least, next year. Something S&P 500, you wouldn't really see that. So that's why the case of the 4-year cycle still stands pretty hard, in my opinion, at least right now. All season, I think the most likely scenario would be, and the QT, you cut rates a little bit more, Q4. You have a fun Q4. Yeah, I mean, what is the Fed kind of, at this point, what is the Fed kind of gearing up for? They want to give you, you know, they want to gear up for probably your typical S&P 500 year, 10, 12, 15% or whatever. All that, you know, Bitcoin going up to 150K. I don't think it would make them too depressed. So that's kind of what I would think. That's what I would see when I think and see. Think what I would think in these scenarios. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all that I've been thinking about right now for, you know, these markets, for things where they're going. Yeah, I still think ETH looks really good, especially compared against Bitcoin. So I think there's that potential, you know. And I think ETH's going to definitely outperform most alts for the next few months. And then generally, your alt season, Q4, short term, you still got a shot. You still got a shot at new all-time highs by early July. ETH 3,200 by early July. So let's hope that happens. Smash the like button, guys. Subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.